So, as Rachel kindly pointed out, I have been given a bit of a hospital pass. So, please bear with me. I got this at the last moment, but I should know the topic relatively well. So, hopefully, I'll be able to deliver it as well as John. So, just a bit about me. I look after marketing for Trekksoft. I'm just moving into the role. I was previously looking after the UK and Ireland market for Trekksoft, so I'll be joining the team now in Interlaken. So this is a fresh announcement here today. In terms of what we do, so there's been a lot of talk, I suppose, about from the tour operator, different distribution channels, how you distribute. Well, one of the big absence when you think about data is actually the in-destination supplier. So what people actually do in the destination, and that's what we're going to talk about a bit more, and how as tour operators you can actually work with those types of companies, and how you can obviously and also get some quick wins, as Kevin was talking about, in terms of doing that, and then maybe thinking about how you can use technology to do it. So basically we work primarily with tour and activity providers and also attraction providers. We also work with incoming tour operators, but what we're really good at is working with in-destination suppliers. So we provide everything from a website builder, back-end management system, an online booking solution, and a channel manager as well. We've even got a mobile app, so you're one person, your local tour guide or a kayaking instructor, they can operate the business on the go. And we also have our own payment gateway, so that companies around the world can take direct payments. Not a huge problem in Europe or the US, but definitely outside of that, taking online payments and taking credit card payments is a big issue. So that's why we have that. Trekksoft was founded in 2010. Really went to the market around 2012. Okay, so we're a relatively young company. We've close to 1,500 customers now around the world. So we're present in pretty much every country you can think of. But we've very much a strategic focus on Europe. So we're really pushing out and targeting European markets. I'll point to it again towards the end of the presentation, but we run a number of networking events in those key markets. One of which is tomorrow. We're running an event in EdSpace in Hackney. So if anyone's around 7 o'clock, please reach out. I'll show you the link later, and you're welcome to come along and we can talk more. It's generally actually about travel distribution as well. So, but we have a team of about 70 people. That's really grown very fast in the last 18 months. The business is really accelerating. Tours and activities is growing in terms of its adoption online, and we're seeing the benefits of it as well. So we're also based in the adventure heartland of Europe. We're based in one of the most beautiful places in the world, in Interlaken in Switzerland. If anyone hasn't had the opportunity to go there, please do come visit our offices. We're right beside the river. It's a beautiful place and definitely worth checking out. We also drink our own Kool-Aid, right? So we were founded by, I suppose, a mix between an activity provider and an inbound tour operator as well. For those of you who are expecting the kind of chiseled former rafting guide, and you've now got me, that's John just on the extreme left, on your extreme left there. So every year we bring all the team in together. We have different offices around the world. We bring everyone together. We've got multiple relationships in Interlaken. We go out and do tours and activities together, and we also, obviously, it's great for our teamwork. But I think it's really important we understand our customers' problems, and we're living in an area as a technology team where tourism is the #1 business. Okay. So what is an in-destination activity? We see this all the time. Customers come to us, call themselves tour operators. There's different types of acronyms and jargon that's present in the industry, and a lot of people get confused. And in fact, even from an online marketing perspective, that creates its own challenges. So an in-destination activity, we describe it as typically someone who's working in the location. They're supplying their own activity. They're not using other suppliers to do that. It can range from a really small business, from like a single tour guide or say a kayaking instructor, right the way up to someone who runs a big boat company or an adventure center or something like that. Okay, so they can receive a lot of bookings from local partners such as hotels. Local relationships, cross-selling has always happened offline. We've all seen it where we've arrived in a hotel and we see the flyers that are positioned in the hotel. This is moving online. It's been gradual, but now it's accelerating. So as more companies come into platforms such as Trekksoft, that gives the ability to optimize distribution, but also expand it. So more channels in terms of the types of channels that were discussed today, in terms of Airbnb or Amadeus, and right up to tour operators can tap into this. And as Simon was talking about in terms of personalization, we can really provide that data platform because we have access to our end user, which is our customer, their live availability. So as tour operators, if you want to diversify what you're offering and offer more personalization to the customer, then it's a lot easier to do it through someone like us. So an in-destination suppliers, like their pain points of dealing with a tour operator, open confirmation. So maybe you have a relationship with them. You set up you set up an initial indication of interest that you might have this booking coming in a number of months. That's quite a difficult thing for an in-destination provider. You may increase or decrease that booking over time. They've got to keep their capacities up to date. So they're selling directly on their websites. They're active locally. So managing those numbers is quite difficult for them to do. That means resource management as well for them. So if I'm an activity provider, for instance, I'm having to maybe I have to hire guides, I'm getting equipment, hiring additional boats. That's all upfront cost before they've got any cash flow in. So again, commission as well for these companies, that's a factor in terms of what they're paying. A lot of them, particularly at the lower end, haven't thought about distribution, right? So when it comes to what they can pay you, it's easier for them to think of it sometimes in terms of a net rate rather than a commission. Sometimes they in terms of commission, they haven't thought about that pricing, so they can't actually afford to pay you what you would typically expect in that type of relationship. And then there's the whole seasonality and cash flow. You know, how do they manage that? They're very seasonal businesses. They've limited distribution. A lot of them have limited advance bookings right now. So it's all coming in at the last minute, and they've no visibility. So that's what the industry can help them with, both on the digital side and also very much in the traditional B2B tour operator space. Two sides of the same coin. So then if you're a tour operator dealing with an in-destination supplier, how is that? Well, it's difficult. Generally small businesses. For personalization, you want greater diversity of product. So a lot of these guys create amazing products, but they are small businesses. Maybe they've just started out. They're just finding their feet. How do you work with a business like that? And particularly when the kind of communication can be quite limited. They might be out giving a particular tour. How do you confirm? How do you do that real-time personalization, as Simon was outlining, you know, at that key trigger point when the customer wants to buy, but you can't confirm with the supplier. So again, lacking technical expertise. Tying into your systems, now that's going to be difficult. So all of that means that, you know, it creates quite a traditional relationship in terms of business, in terms of how those suppliers are actually working with you. And ultimately that leads, what's the day in the life for both sides of the equation? So still using email, fax actually is still operating, believe it or not. And of course the phone is being used a lot, which is really painful in terms of optimizing your processes, and that's where, you know, some sort of level of outsourcing can make sense. But as more of these companies come into systems such as Trekksoft, that's going to be reduced because you'll be able to see the live availability. Last minute reservations on the bus, well, isn't that a nightmare? Probably oftentimes tour operators now, incoming tour operators, that, well, if we've got people in the destination, we're going to work with a select group of preferred suppliers because we know that they can operate on a free sale basis. That's easier from a business process perspective, but it's terrible for the customer because you struggle to update the type of product offering. But it is something that makes things easier, because trying to do that at the last minute is very difficult. Never being sure of live availability. If you're not sure of live availability, you've got an operations problem. So you're going to have to dedicate resources to making sure that's available. And when you scale that up, that's very difficult. So increasing that personalization and adding that great product to the mix, if you're going to also create a huge cost, as Kevin was talking about, if you don't have control of your costs, your profitability then potentially is undermined. So, this is a really important thing. Invoicing as well. How do you invoice for that customer? If it's paper-based and a lot of things are moving forward and back, it becomes difficult for both parties. Oftentimes, actually, it becomes so cumbersome for those small businesses that it's not even worth their while working with you. Okay, so a lot of headaches, but and a lot of manual processes, but opportunities abound. Okay, so there's obviously guests. We understand now they can source a lot of their information online. They search for it. Airbnb was a great example this morning. And that level of personalization that a guest is looking for means that is also creating opportunities in terms of trip planning in specific areas. So adding more value to what the customer wants to see and taking some of the pain points away from them. Because if you're managing your relationship with that supplier, they are also managing it. So that means they have to actually go on, deal with them. They're not seeing that last minute availability. So they're actually having to do this across a whole trip of maybe 2 weeks or whatever it is. So there are huge opportunities in terms of creating that personalization. And it's all about being able to understand how can I create more products that are relevant to the customer type that I'm focusing on and can give them that view of the availability if you're selling it direct, but equally where you can manage it if you're actually packaging and bundling as a tour operator. So we've actually recently conducted taken a fairly in-depth study of our own customers, and what we've seen is actually it shows the opportunity in this space. So 59% of the respondents to our survey from our own customers are not using any distribution channels. So it's 100% direct business, right? So that's across that's a huge volume of bookings that are available in destinations you're probably already serving. Okay, so 75% they're receiving more bookings, so they are open to distribution. But a lot of it's huge. The balance between online and offline, even for our own customers, is pretty much 50-50. And these are people who have adopted online solutions. Now, what that kind of tells you is their ability to address the advanced market. Even in where these companies are selling direct, it's still quite difficult for them to actually generate those advanced bookings. They need to understand what they're doing on online, from an online marketing perspective. And this is something where distribution can really help. Interestingly, for 20% of our suppliers, incoming tour operators are the number one source of bookings. So there's already, for traditional tour operators out there, there's a lot of our suppliers that depend on the booking flow from you. And then the general kind of commission rate that is able to be absorbed by the industry, 25% is kind of your ceiling. And that's where net rates, combinations, and also commission should really be thought about. So solutions to the pain point. So I described a lot of pain points. We're a technology company. You're like, God, we'd love to do this, but it doesn't sound like there's any solution to do it. Working with a company like us, there is. So we can actually, we have a partner network. So we have our own internal API that works directly with the software. So you don't need to create a technical project to actually integrate with it. But effectively, that allows you to connect to any Trekksoft customer. So now you're getting a live feed of all their data as they update it, right? And it doesn't require you to create a huge technical project to do it. You can sit atop our system just by subscribing for an account. What I didn't mention as well, we're a software as a service system. So it's not like when you come to us, we're not building bespoke solutions for you. It's a web-based software as a service solution. You pay a subscription fee to use it, and then you can access all of our tools. We also have a booking desk. So the booking desk works in two ways. It's also local distribution. So this is where hotel concierges can log in and make bookings for the suppliers in the system. But equally, it can be used to manage suppliers, maybe if you're using Trekksoft, that aren't ready to list on Trekksoft, so you don't have that real-time interface. Tourist boards and DMOs, this is a strategy we're having to also, one, get more capacity into real live bookable systems, and equally it's a sales strategy for us to get out to more tour operators around the world. But essentially we work with Visit Cornwall in the UK, Fjord Norway in Norway obviously, and also Tourism Interlaken. And what they do is they're promoting, they want to take sales. So, well, not all, but most want to take sales on their own website to sell activities as well. They also want to access distribution. Their difficulty is managing the capacities, managing the availabilities. They don't want to do that. Their teams are not large enough to do it. So what they do is they promote the use of Trekksoft as their preferred supplier in the location to the in-destination suppliers. They take up the system. They have a direct channel on their own website. But equally now the DMO can sell it in location. So 2/3 of bookings in tours and activities actually happen in destination within 48 hours. So mobile hasn't really penetrated this space yet, because if you're waiting on just listing systems and where they're on free sale, you're not going to get access to last minute capacities. But now with the DMO, because they're reading the live availability of each individual supplier, they can offer that in their hotel partners, and they can also offer it on a mobile app that they run. And equally, they can offer it out to distribution partners. Okay, so they're areas where we can also work with tour operators in terms of accessing distribution. And it's also something you can plug into by being a customer. You can create bilateral contracts with any customers on our system as well. So the future. This is something that we all would like to see, I think, where we're running a trip and we have a bunch of ancillary suppliers that we're using to add upsells. So there was a lot of conversations about this morning. So I've got a guide running a trip, and I arrive in a particular location. I want to be out before my guests arrive on that trip. I want to offer them options. Some people might want to go and see a castle. Others might want to go and do an activity such as surfing. And for me to actually facilitate that and get some revenue from those relationships, my guide now has to be active and ringing to see if there's availability for those, and being able to position with the supplier if they can actually take them. Or they go down the easy route and just give everyone the same option. Again, that's not very personalized. So what we'd really like to do is be able to have your guide on the bus be able to actually see what the live availability is on those particular options, and be able to process them directly whilst they're on the bus. And then these bookings are going directly into the supplier's reservation system, so they're indifferent between that booking coming from the tour operator as they are from one on their own website, or someone who walks up to them and pays cash directly at the activity. Now, this is actually possible at the moment with Trekksoft. We are trialing this with a bus tour operator in Europe. At the moment, it'll only work where it links into Trekksoft customers. But I think as more companies come into that, we're also involved in distribution. This type of example is going to become more prevalent all the time. So in summary, experience-driven marketing is key. So we can optimize your ability to drive traffic to a location, or to personalize how you package your product to a particular customer type by focusing on experience-driven marketing. And then we can allow you to process bookings when the customer is relevant to do that, particularly in an online environment, but also actually in-trip where you're managing customers. Personalize your offerings. You know, this has been a general theme of all of our presentations, I think, even though none of us talked about this beforehand, I must add. And that's really important. How do you get, customers expect choice now. That's what they can access online. But in many respects, actually, in the destination, that's still quite difficult. So whatever strategies you can employ to do that, you know, that will pay off. And we feel that we have a platform that can help you with that, but also by just working with the suppliers that you're working with in destination, understand where their businesses are at. How can you deal with them? Don't treat them all as just, oh, it's another small business. There are different ways. Understand their business dynamics and their models as well. Broadening supplier searches, again, like freshening up what you're doing and offering more products increases personalization. Be discoverable online. You know, more and more you can provide live availability of products that you can give to customers. I suppose this works as much for our general customer, which is an in-destination supplier, as it does for a tour operator. But I think more and more, like even B2B tour operators are generating their own FIT sites as well, because if both systems are synced, why wouldn't you? You know, it's just as easy. And then ultimately, like build your presence. We've got channel management for up to companies such as Viator. But equally, the guys have talked about different distribution strategies that you can have and how you can tie in with those as well. Okay, so as a final point, I did mention that we are running an event tomorrow night, so if anyone is around, that's the link. I think we've got a simpler link, Ilse, as well, where it's just trekksoft.com/London. So if anyone wants to go onto that to register and come along, we're talking about distribution, and also a bit about Trekksoft and a general networking session for anyone around in the London market as well. So thank you for your time.